Welcome to part 2 with Joshua Medcalf. You may know him for his amazing books. He is also a speaker and a mentor, and I am really excited to have him on for the second part of our podcast. Joshua has so much wisdom to share with all of us, so take a listen. I think that's a really beautiful quality to have. So many people that I know are codependent, people pleasers, and always wanting to keep their environment comfortable for others. And I think for a lot of us, we can learn a lot from somebody who has strong boundaries. And I think it's a really beautiful way to be, because there's something about it that makes someone very trustworthy as well. And living from that place of the heart, which I know you do, and at the same time having strong boundaries and my son just got home. So that reminds me of another question. He's gently, quietly walking down the stairs. And we don't need to cut this out. We can keep this very real. I love him so much. I love my kids more than life. But yeah, it's a beautiful way to be, because it's something that
it's beautiful. It's beautiful, but I will say that it comes at a big cost, and that socially it is not the preferred way of being in most social situations, and it really does come at a cost. You know, I had the privilege of being in Chris Cuomo's life for quite some time, and he calls me a combination of Rain Man and Bobby Knight. And that's somebody that I think has a brain like a Ferrari, and there's not a lot of people that intimidate me intellectually, and he would be near or at the top of the list. And, you know, to communicate the way that I communicate and to live the way that I live, I do recognize that that is not the path to social, to the social hierarchy. That there's going to be a lot of pain. There's going to be a lot of misunderstanding, and there's going to be a lot of, you talk about the crabs, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come at you, and you don't even have to take the amount of people that have tried to do weird things to me from a professional standpoint, or just steal my intellectual property and turn it into, their own clothing lines and rap songs and weird things that have happened, or just the things that I'm sure you experience all the time of just people stealing your quotes and putting them on their social media or in their books and claiming them as their own, or misconstruing it in a way that it's like, I think you knew what you were doing because you know where that came from, and you just didn't want to give credit where it came from, and more importantly, where you got it. But yeah, I think that I always try and be very clear with people that if you were to live that more purely authentic life and existence, that does mean that there's going to be social consequences for living that way. I also know that it creates and fosters some really beautiful relationships that I have that I wouldn't have if I did not operate the way that I operate, and I wouldn't get the influence and opportunities and access that I get, and I wouldn't get invited to Aspen to speak to, titans of industry, and people like Chris wouldn't call me if I wasn't that way. But
because they trust you. There's a trust in that. But I understand what you're saying. It's maybe pulling it in a little bit, and people that are a little bit more the people pleasers pulling it in a little bit, right? Like finding that happy medium is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it just understanding that it may not be for everybody, and everybody's risk tolerance and just tolerance in general is different. And so, it's even in my coaching, I always try and be very clear with people that I may give two clients the exact opposite coaching and advice because of the way that they are wired and my understanding of who they are as human beings. And that it's more about each and every one of us operating in the way that we were designed and created. And that, just like in the body, like the foot is supposed to do what the foot does. It's not supposed to do what the hands do. And the hand isn't supposed to do what the heart does. And the heart isn't supposed to do what the lungs do. And understanding that we aren't all alike. And in order for a society or an organization to coexist, you need people to do and serve different functions. And, but I think there's too many people out there that are just selling, one type of thing. And it's like, well, this is the way. And it's like, yeah, maybe.
Or the sound bites,
yeah.
using the sound bite for,
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you're a lot more of a garden like I am. There's just so many different flowers and different ways. And forget about a soundbite. I remember when I was doing work with the media and they said, okay, we want you to have a soundbite for that. And I was like, I can't do this. And I had an agent that called my husband and said, she's not willing to do this the way that we want.
Not being cooperative.
She's not being cooperative. And I burst out crying and I said, you're on their side. That's not who I am. I don't need to make it. I need to be me, whatever making it is. I just want to show up. I mean, since I was a child, I've just always seen the world as a much bigger place than this little world of competition, which also leads me to say, I was talking to one of my best friends earlier today, and I didn't want to forget to say this because I said, I'm going to mention Blanca when I told her I was interviewing you. When I've never been competitive in terms of sports. I have a competitive edge, of course, because I'm a human being, but I've never been athletic. And two things I'll say. I was at a wedding last weekend because one of my best friend's daughters just married an NFL quarterback, actually the old quarterback to the Jets. And when he got up to speak, he said, when I told my father that I met Nicolette, he said, how tall is she? And I'm sitting there and I look at my daughter like, listen, height has nothing to do with being an athlete because I'm tall, but no, I was never an athlete. But when I was 12, I met my best friend at the time. Well, my best friend all through high school because I played center in basketball and so did she. And we were on opposite teams. And I looked at her and I said, oh my gosh, I am in love with this woman. She's taller than me because I did not like being tall. I was tall way too early in life. But anyway, she was great. I was horrible. We still laugh at it. I mean, I was horrible. And her daughter got a scholarship her junior year of high school to Chapel Hill and she's 6'5". She is an incredible basketball player. And she's on ESPN. My girlfriends and I from high school get together and watch. I still can't even tell what's really going on. But, so Blanca Thomas, I'm going to say her name because I'm so proud of her and I love her so much. But she's this incredible young woman who owns it. She owns her gifts. She owns her height. She owns her talent. And I'm so in awe of that because in this day and age where, and this leads me to a question I have for you, in this day and age where social media is the avenue that so many of the kids and the young adults are, comparing themselves. I know you said it, maybe Eleanor,
yeah.
Was it Roosevelt?
Eleanor Roosevelt. Yeah.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? And it is, right? We know this. competition can be too, if it's not in sports that can make it fun. But having kids myself, I see this, and I see this amongst a lot of my friends' kids, this comparison on TikTok or Instagram, and this insecurity that it can bring about, or this feeling of I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough, or this person has all of this going on, and we see that it's really hurting a lot of the younger generation of our new thought leaders coming forward, and we don't want that, obviously. What is your advice for, because I know that you talk about the road less traveled and to find your own avenue. What is your advice for these college-age kids that are, they're getting out of college and they're now competing with AI, or they're concerned about being able to make a living and being able to buy a house, and the struggle is real. So what would be your advice for, for example, my son, who is going to be a senior in college, and he's now taking the LSATs and wants to go to law school and is thinking about taking a year off. And my husband's saying, I don't think you should take a year off. And I'm saying, take all the time you want off, find yourself. Maybe you don't want to be a lawyer. What is your advice for these parents as well that see things differently,
Again, so many questions. I will try and pick them apart one by one.
And you can just mention whatever you want to mention, be flowery. It's all good.
So for young kids, I don't just try and talk about the road less traveled. I talk about self-directed learning versus rote learning. And that if you were to take like two pieces of paper, and on one piece of paper, you put, just 3 dots. And then on the other piece of paper, you have thousands of dots. And each of those were to, they were to signify a person. If you do rote learning, like law school, or you have a, business degree, or you have you became a MD, you have this rote learning, and really no matter how good you are, you're really replaceable. And versus if you go on a self-directed journey, which means you're going to have to step outside of the box, you're going to have to do things on your own, you're going to have to explore different avenues, then those 3 people aren't very replaceable. A lot of what sometimes gets misconstrued from those that don't know me well as arrogance is not arrogance. It's just reality of, who are you going to replace me with? They don't exist. There's nobody else that's done what I've done. And my resume is what it is. My experiences are what they are. You can't just cut and paste somebody into filling the roles that I have filled. Even a guy at the club asked me the other day, so what's your industry? And I was like, I am a brand in an industry in and of myself, because I have chosen a self-directed path that is got so many obstacles and challenges and differences. And I've never bought a home ever in my whole life. It was the first big talk I did. So I retired for 7 years. And the first talk that I did when I came out of quote unquote retirement was to a home lending group, basically like the private Rocket Mortgage. And I was like, yeah, I'm really sorry, but I've never gone through this process. So, And I had a lot of people that told me, well, that's crazy. You have to buy a home. Like, Joshua, you need to put your money into, and I'm like, listen, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's for me. I never dreamed about homes. I liked, high rises, as you can see behind me. I like my apartments in downtown San Diego. I think the cost of living is great. I like that I can pack up and leave and go to Europe or wherever I want to go. I like the fact that I can pack up and leave and go to a different apartment if I want to do that. It's all, it's very simple. So in terms of, owning a home, I don't know what to tell young people because that is becoming more and more challenging. But again, it's about what sacrifices are you willing to make, and what are you out trying to project that you're successful and pretend that you're successful because you have the quote unquote trappings and you have the things that look like that? Or are you willing to save and cut costs? And, I lived with my mom for 6 years. Part of why my brand experienced the growth that it experienced and I was able to do the things that I was able to do is because I didn't have to worry at all about housing expenses and most expenses for over 6 years, because as an adult with a degree from Vanderbilt and could have easily had a master's from Duke if I just would have written my master's thesis, I lived with my mom in a small 2-bedroom apartment. I didn't care
amazing,
what it looked
though.
like.
See that again, I see that as such a gift that you have, because that's rare. And
Well, so I like
rare.
when I ask people, how much are you willing to suffer? They say, somebody asked me this on a podcast the other day, and they didn't like, and they were really young. I think there was a 22-year-old that was doing the interview, and he asked the question about success, and I said that he was like a one-word thing, and I hate doing that, much like the soundbite thing. But I said it's sacrifice and suffering. It's how much are you willing to suffer, and how much are you willing to intentionally sacrifice? And the answers to those two questions are a much greater predictor of the trajectory of your life and your quote unquote success than how ambitious are you, or what do you want, or what are your goals, or what are your dreams. No, it's how much are you willing to suffer and how much are you willing to sacrifice? And then how do you use your 86,400 seconds every single day? And does that map to the size of your dreams? But if you aren't willing to intentionally choose suffering and sacrifice, if you aren't willing to intentionally choose hard, and so for young people, one of the biggest things, especially the young people you're speaking of, the biggest challenge that they're facing is not social media. It is not AI. It's the fact that their parents and leadership figures in their life have tried to smooth the road for them.
Right. I know.
So what I tell them is,
I'm more guilty of it than most. So
yeah, I tell them, go choose hard. Go.
Yeah.
They're like, why did you live in a homeless shelter? Well, that was me choosing hard. And also that was the path that made sense for doing what I wanted to do. It didn't need to look the way that I wanted it to maybe look. And well, why did you sleep on Skid Row? Well, and why did you live in the closet of a gym? If you will intentionally choose hard, if you will intentionally choose the road less traveled, and you are genuinely curious about it, I was tired of hearing about you. If you live in California, you hear all about homelessness. Well, let me go sleep on Skid Row. Let me feel and understand from that perspective what this is like. Well, that's going to change your perspective really quickly. There's a lot of people that talk about that have never done that. And so for young people, that's one thing is choose suffering, choose sacrifice, choose hard. And another really big thing is try and surround yourself with the smartest and best people out there,
right,
to compete with and to learn from. One of my cheat codes has always been, I sit at those people's feet and try and learn everything I can learn. I am willing to virtually pay any price to get around them and get my ass kicked by them and not be intimidated by them, but be like, wow, I get to get beat by this person. Like, I got really good at golf because my best friends in San Diego, the people I gambled with, are the best players in Southern California. And I wasn't good enough to play with them when we started playing. So I got beat a lot. But guess what? If you put yourself in that environment over and over, it's not even motivate you. It's you eventually are going to figure it out. And the one thing I did want to say is that,
so you catch it.
Yeah, there's just, it's a learning curve, but that you are athletic. And everybody is an artist. Everybody is athletic, and everybody is an artist.
You haven't seen me try to hit a ball.
It doesn't matter. But I know that most of the time there's levels to that. It doesn't mean that you are as athletic as me or you're as athletic as anybody else. But everybody is athletic and everybody is artistic, and that if you apply a lot of time, effort, energy, and good coaching and or mentors and people like I'm talking about that are around you, you can get better. You can develop that. It may not mean that your ceiling is in that or that that's the greatest use of your time. But I would be very remiss if I didn't say that everybody is artistic and everybody is athletic. But we do live in a society that pushes us to either you have it or you don't, instead of, if you go around and you play, like there's probably 10 examples I could give you of people at my club that were not that good, but that I liked them as human beings. Do you know how good they are today because of me being in their life and playing with them and teaching them things? Because in 4 hours of playing golf with somebody, and if you do that, even if just once a month, you're going to learn things. You're going to absorb things. And for me, I push people to where it's either you have one path to get to stay playing with me. You either learn and you're open, or you're really cool and I just enjoy you. But otherwise, I won't play with you. You have to be open to that. But I've just seen the impact of that in my own life. And it's why anywhere I've lived, I'm surrounded by books, because I surround myself with the greats. I want to learn from their stories. I want to learn from the things that they've done. Jim Murphy was over here the other day, and Jim and I have been really good friends for a long time. And when he told me some of the stuff that was going on in his life that week that Inner Excellence went viral and went to #1 in the world, it's crazy. But if you don't know that, you just go, oh, wow, how lucky is Jim Murphy that Inner Excellence was read by A.J. Brown, and then Tom Brady talked about it on, the conference finals, and then they talked about it on the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden overnight his book is the #1 book in the world. Well, also, he spent 5 years writing that book, and it sold less than 10,000 copies in 16 years. So did he get lucky? I wouldn't call it lucky. But then there's more things, and I don't know how much he's talking on podcasts or not about what was going on in his personal life right then. But like, when you get behind the scenes of anybody, you hear the same themes and the same stories of struggle and perseverance and how close they were to bankruptcy or things not working. And it's the same stories. And so the more that you're around that and the more that you see that struggle, then the more that you go, oh, well, maybe I am on the right path. But you have to be willing to surround yourself with people that are quote unquote better than you. And one of the biggest mistakes that this generation has had imparted upon them is everybody is equal. And that is fucking bullshit.
Right.
Everyone gets bullshit. The award. They are not. There are people that are better than you. There are people that are better looking than you. There are people that are smarter than you. There are people that are more talented than you. It doesn't mean that they're going to finish ahead of you, but not everybody is equal. Not everybody starts at the same place. You can cry about that. or you can understand, hey, maybe I can learn from this person. Hey, maybe there's something I can, what do they do differently than I do? And sometimes it is. They're just, there's not a lot that you or I could do to be 6'9" and 270 pounds and be able to play tight end in the NFL or, guard in the NBA. But there's a lot of other things that you can learn from other people. And the more that you surround yourself with the greats, whether that's in podcasts, whether that's in books, whether that's in masterclass videos, whether that's if you actually get access to them. But the more that you understand that no, not everybody is equal, and that you actually seek those people out and want to be around them and want to get your ass kicked by them, the better off you're going to be. And the more that you're okay with not quote unquote being the best and not looking great. Like one thing I've found is that people that I love quoting other people. I take pride in the fact that I can tell you where quotes came from and who they came from. And it's one thing I've noticed today is that those people that like to cut those corners and try and make themselves look like there's something that they're not, they may get these little small bumps, but most of the time, by the end, by the middle of the race, you start to see, oh man, they're really kind of struggling. Like I tell people all the time, like that James Clear is the greatest writer of my generation. And many of the ideas that I've taken and expounded upon and I put into different fables came from James Clear. I don't ever try and say, oh, I'm as good a writer as he is, or I'm as smart as he is, or anything like that. Like it's so beneficial to you to give credit and talk about others and how smart they are. But that doesn't happen very often on social media. But it ends up backfiring in ways of when you try and make yourself look smart, well, then all these things come out and it's like, oh yeah, well that actually came from, and instead of just like, oh no, yeah, like people, like you said, people like will steal my ideas all the time or my exercises or quotes or things like that. And I always just I feel sorry for them in a way because I'm like, especially at this point in my life and career, this would make you look better if you told them where it came from.
Yes.
Not worse.
And they have to go to sleep with themselves at night, right? I mean, I like to go to sleep at night knowing that I did the right thing, right? And that if I say something, I quote the person. I guess there's different levels of that as well, though. I mean,
I don't worry about the right and the wrong. I leave that up to other people. But there is something about, and you want to talk about the universe, and I don't get into it a lot, but when it comes to like abundance, the more that you try and live, I've always said I try and live like this. Like if I lose something and I have a bad habit of losing expensive things, and I always say it was a donation to the world. And that I hope that it really blesses somebody's life. And I try and not live like this. And the more that I can live like this with that open heart of I'm trying to give, I'm trying to add value. I'm trying how can I add value? How can I add value? How can I add value? Now you still need to have healthy boundaries and you can communicate those with love and respect. One of my favorite human beings that's in Finish Empty and is one of my real life best friends and favorite human beings, Dave Hilfman, he never says no. He says, I would love to do that. I just can't this time, but it's always, I would love to play with you. I would love to do that. I would love to do that. And then he also lives that out of when he can, he does. And then guess what? people always want to do stuff for him, and he gets doors fling open for him, and all these opportunities come, but you see that he's always lived, I'm trying to get my hands in the camera, like this, and lived with that open heart of, I want to try and add as much value as I can and not live like this, and I'm going to protect, and that to me is short game. That's a short game strategy that can work and has worked for some people. But I think that it does something internally to your heart. And even from a biological, physiological perspective and health perspective, it's going to have significant impacts on you. It's going to have impacts on your relationships. But I always wonder too, with some of those people, I wonder how much more they could have had in their life. Health. I don't talk about happiness very often, but happiness, wealth, and wealth in terms of relationships, wealth in terms of physical wealth and opportunities, if they had actually lived like this. Because you just see it over and over again, that the people that move through the world like that, in the long run, in the long game, they win, and they tend to win in really, really big ways. And those that live the opposite, it may look good on paper occasionally or for a period of time, but then in the long game, you see the suffering and you see the cracks and you see it all fall apart more often than not.
One of my favorite places in the world is Assisi, and I know you and I share a love for Italy. And St. Francis of Assisi is someone that I'm fascinated with. And it reminds me of this basket. When you have your hands like this, there's this basket. It's a statue in Assisi where these doves live. And in the museum next to the statue, I was so fascinated. And I asked the director there about the doves. And she told me that the doves are from the same lineage of doves that were there when St. Francis was alive. And, it's like the prayer of St. Francis. It is in giving that we receive. That's what I'm thinking of as you're saying this. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are reborn, right? All of that. It's in opening our heart that we are able to receive. And I think that goes two ways. One, it's that when we open our heart and we're giving, we feel more deserving of receiving. At least I do. And maybe that's just a Catholic guilt thing that I have from having, my Italian dad. Well, more my British mom, I think, because dad was a little bit more open to taking care of our own needs. Mom was always give back, give back. But there's also that universal law that I truly see all the time. And I used to teach fertility yoga. And I used to say to all the students, if you want a baby, go spend time with moms rather than feeling the pain of them having the baby that you don't have yet. Go celebrate that baby or go to the baby shower and shop and buy the most phenomenal gift from your heart and wrap it, put a beautiful bow on it and give it with love. Yeah. Because that is the way you are going to open yourself to receiving the gift of pregnancy, which is a miracle from the divine, I believe. But also we have to believe that it can happen, and that's why I always say we have to expect the best. And in order to expect the best, we have to be the best version of ourselves authentically. And again, go to sleep at night knowing I did what I could to serve this world. I didn't take someone else's idea. I didn't shoot someone down. I didn't sabotage a friend because I'm jealous. I instead felt envious and said, you know what? I'm envious right now, but I'm going to use this envy as motivation. So thank you. And I have those conversations with my best friends. And it's not realistic to say that we're not jealous of our friends at times. I would do anything for not anything. I do anything for my kids, but I definitely feel like I'm a good friend. But I'm also human. And I love when they express their truth to me in that way as well. And I can say, oh, come on, that's silly. That's what real authentic relationships hold, I believe.
Yeah. So I just pulled up my favorite poem probably that I've ever written that I know you read in Chop Wood, Carry Water. And
I bet it's Surrender. Is it Surrender?
Yeah, Surrender the Outcome.
I knew it because I have it underlined in here. I knew it. See?
Yep.
I can feel you. Okay. Yeah. So go ahead. I want you to read this to everyone.
Yeah. It says the ultimate illusion of the human experience is control, which was a Judah Smith quote from a talk that he gave. The ultimate illusion of the human experience is control. The person you want beside you in battle is the guy who has surrendered the outcome and surrendered to the fact that he might die. When you surrender the outcome, you are freed up to be at your best, to be in the moment, and to trust your training. It is the one who has surrendered the outcome who ironically has the greatest chance of survival. It is the one who has surrendered the outcome who has the greatest chance of success. It is the one who has surrendered to the fact that he could fail who has the greatest likelihood of not failing. Until you surrender the outcome, you will always be the greatest enemy to your own success. In order to reach your greatest potential, you must operate with a heart posture of gratitude, commit to the controllables, surrender the outcome, and trust the process. Surrendering the outcome doesn't mean you care less about the outcome or your process. It doesn't mean you don't give your very best. It means that you have surrendered the outcome that is outside of your control. Many mornings I pray and surrender things I desperately want to control, but I know I don't have control over. Surrendering the outcome is about having peace with that which is outside of our control without sacrificing the effort or care of what is inside of our control.
I love it. I love that so much. And like I said, I had a feeling you were going to say that because I have it underlined. And I'll add to that. I always say surrender is not giving up. Surrender is handing it over, right? Handing it over to a higher power. Well,
again, I think it's just so much of this instead of this.
Yes.
I think it's the Bruce Lee thing about water that if you want to hold it, you have to hold it lightly. If you squeeze it, it's going to come out. And it's just that heart posture of there's certain things that you can't control, but we do know that the more that you squeeze, one of my, it's silly, but you probably also watched this movie growing up, the Chris Farley scene in, with him and David Spade, and he's talking about Big Daddy is the name that's coming to mind, but it's not that movie. That's an Adam Sandler movie. But Chris Farley is trying to take over for his father's company, and they're on this road trip, and he's going out to try and save the company with sales, and they're waiting for their food, and he's telling the waitress he's got the piece of bread, and he's like, oh, this is like my sale, and it's so great, and I love it, and then I just get so excited that I just devour it, and he just tears it up. And it's like, yes, that is what so many of us do, that we want it so bad. And we think that we want it so bad because that's the other flip side of it is we say, oh, I want this. And like, you have no idea what you want. You think that you want it. Wait until it happens. And then you didn't realize, oh, that wasn't what I actually wanted. It's what I thought that I wanted. But we actually sabotage things so often unintentionally because we're doing this instead of this.
Yeah, because it's in being light that we take off, right? It's almost like some people hold their breath because they feel like if they contract, they have more control. And meanwhile, it's when we soften.
Yeah.
And we lean into our breathing and we allow that breath to expand our rib cage that our nervous system actually chimes in and recalibrates.
Yeah.
So it's all connected. I mean, listen, Joshua, I could talk to you for hours and hours, but I want to respect your time, and also my fabulous, very patient producer who's on here quietly, probably loving all of this. Thank you, Troy, for being on a little bit longer right now.
Is your son here to say hello? Because I know you had mentioned that.
Yes, I would love that. Let me see if I can get him. I was telling Joshua how I bought Chop Wood Carry Water for you originally, and then I'm the one who read it, but I told you about Joshua, and I was talking about how Sensei Jim's really changed your life.
It's funny you said that. I just had a great...
Here, come on in. Here, come on in. Here he is.
You'll be able to hear him.
How's it going? I can hear you.
What's going on, man?
How you doing? Pretty cool that you have a real life sensei. Yeah, it's pretty cool that you have a real life sensei and were able to get that type of experience as a young kid.
Yeah, no. So I actually I just went there to the karate dojo this morning for a 9 a.m. class, and just like you would do in typical fashion after class, we go in the gym where the kitchen is also at, and we just bullshit for a bit. So we just had a nice 1 hour conversation this morning, just about, my trajectory in life in general. Gave me some advice as always. Make me a nice little cup of coffee before I work out. So he really is like my surrogate karate dad. Is kind of what I like to call him. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely very, very blessed to have him. A lot of other people in my life who have kind of steered the way for me. So yeah, for sure. So
yeah. What did you find most helpful in Chop Wood Carry Water? What hit home the most?
I haven't read it yet. Actually, my mom's been pushing me to, but
okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to, because she's been raving about it.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. It was. I wish all those conversations you have with him. That's basically what I took and tried to put into that book. Is everything I wish I would have had whenever I was a young athlete. And
no, totally. So, I'm not sure what my mom told you, but my father is he here right now?
Mm-mm.
He is like, arguably you could say that he is the ideal masculine role model. Not in an athletic sense, but he showed up for me and my sister. He woke up 5 a.m., busted his ass, came home at 7 p.m., worked 12-hour days, 30 hours a week. So you could say, arguably that is like just like the ideal, form of masculinity. But he never really kind of instilled in me. He definitely tried, just not in sports that I enjoy, like with baseball and football and whatnot. But he never really got to me in the form of, being athletic, learning how to lift weights or anything. So when I met Jim, my life definitely turned around, because at the time as a kid, I was kind of lazy and didn't like doing anything hard. So I didn't really have like that kind of way of like putting energy into something that would teach me like how to actually kind of do life, which is doing hard things and subsequently growing through that. So that's why I say he's my surrogate karate dad, like he really just kind of like, with his aid, I definitely learned how to kind of find something, sport wise that I loved, that like made me grow as a person. And like, I literally just told him this, and I've told him many times before, but like, if I never met him, my life right now would be a lot different. Like, I would be a much different person. I'm sure my mom could testify to that too. So
that's super cool. I think that you're very fortunate to have a Sensei Jim in your life, and I think
everybody should have. Every young man, especially nowadays, should have. And unfortunately, they're not as easy to come by for some people, but every young man should have a role model like that they can kind of just like, point towards, not even in times of crises, just like generally to kind of have like a life trajectory and just kind of have a proper outline of how things should go if you really want to be the best person you can be.
Yeah. No, again, that's I think it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 where you come on after you read Chop Wood and read Pound the Stone and see what you think of. How old are you now? 22. So if you had those when you were 10, because that's kind of where I think that if you start imparting these types of stories in young people's lives. And like you said, not everybody has a Sensei Jim, or not everybody has, it took me getting to Duke on the number one team in the country with soccer to learn sports psychology. And it was, I was like, why'd I have to get here to learn this? Why isn't this taught whenever I was 7, 8, 9 years old? But the truth is, there's a lot of people that don't know how to teach it or what they should be teaching, or they're like, oh, I'm just supposed to be a math teacher. Oh, I'm supposed to teach basketball, or oh, I'm supposed to teach, this specific skill, but they're not actually focused on the total life and, mindset, the heart posture, the work ethic, and connecting all the dots for you so that you can really use your sport and use school to become the type of person that you want to become, instead of just focused on, well, how do you get A's? How do you win a tournament and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think that for sports and just kind of fitness in general, you can extrapolate it to the rest of your life. Like, I don't feel like I'm not claiming to be like, the best student. I have decent grades. I have a 3.7 right now. I'm going to my senior year of college, but like, I don't think I would have, my point being, I don't think I would have been able to kind of get there if I didn't have the work ethic that I developed from fitness and sports. Like, it definitely bleeds into every single area of your life, whether it be with, like academics, relationships, just kind of having that grit and that work ethic. Like, it doesn't just stop there at, being in the gym or being proficient at whatever sport you choose. Like, it really does kind of carry over to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Especially if you're intentional about it. I think that was the big thing, is people always say that sports instill character. And it's like, well, I know a lot of people that also are told that if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And so it's more learning how to channel sports and use them, and that no matter if you have a terrible coach or you have a great coach, or you have a great situation or you have a terrible situation, it's learning to develop that true mental toughness. And it's using that sport or using school or using that relationship, using that job to develop more of the characteristics that you want. And that's always available to us. But if we're focused on the outcomes and not the process and not the internal things that can come from that, it's very easy to get caught up in the rat race of, oh, well, did I succeed? Did I achieve? Instead of, who did I become in this process?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about the journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This is, I've never had somebody's son come on before. So very cool.
Yeah. Great to meet you, Joshua.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Great to meet you as well.
I'm so glad you got to meet.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And I do feel like Sensei Jim was a huge gift in all of our lives. And, there were moments when Christian was young and I said, you have to do something. So we have to go, we'll try karate. And he didn't want to go. And finally, I said, this is not working. And Sensei Jim, he said, what about if I do, and this is kudos to you, Sensei Jim, Fairhaven Karate, the best place. I said, he said, what about if I do a private one-on-one with him? I said, let's do it. And that's where Christian got hooked. And that was a long time ago. And so he still comes home from college and still, they go to karate camp in the summer together, like two buddies. And he's Sensei Jim's old enough to be his dad, so we're so grateful.
It sounds very similar to Russ in Pound the Stone. There's a very similar journey with Russ and Jason, and so I had said to him, I know you couldn't hear because he had the headphones, but I said that
I couldn't.
He should read Chop Wood, Carry Water, and Pound the Stone, and then next time us three will do it all together. We'll do a follow-up podcast, because I said, this is like what I put in there. And I think it'll be interesting from a 22-year-old's perspective. And he's obviously very articulate as well, that, what does he wish and what's most important that young people coming up, know that, so that he can pass on, because it's very easy for us. We're all really good at, well, yeah, I wish I would have had this. And it's like, okay, well, are you that? Like, go be that. I was frustrated that I didn't have what I created. And so I created the first mental training apps in the world for basketball, soccer, and golf. And I created motivational mixtapes, and I created books, and I created podcasts, and I created video. And I really tried to create, I tried to equip, and I tried to build what I wish that I had. And so oftentimes whenever I am, especially with people his age and even younger, sometimes I would be working with somebody that was a 14-year-old, and I'd be like, I need you to go find a 10 or 11-year-old and start teaching them what I'm teaching you and being for them what you wish that you had. Because it's so easy to look up and be like, yeah, well, nobody did this for me. Well, then go be that for the next generation.
I couldn't agree more. And for me also, I love teaching yoga to kids and teenagers, and I love being there. Sometimes I have moms that bring their kids on yoga retreats, and it's so special because there's nothing more gratifying than being that person that helps frame someone in their youth and motivates them and inspires them. And it's nothing's, those are the things that matter, right? Those are the things that make a difference. So we'll do that.
Yeah, there's that quote somewhere in probably multiple of my books, but the only thing that's significant about today is who we become and the impact we have on others.
I did read that. I'm sure it's underlined as well. And we will, I will have, Christian loves to read. So he'll read these. I wasn't sharing for a little while, but now I'll share. So he'll read them for sure. And then, that would be great. We'll get you on.
Yeah, we'll do it.
And, we'll do that. It'd be great for helping parents and kids. So again, I am so grateful, Joshua, so grateful that you gave us this time. And I wish you the best. And I thank you for contributing to this crazy, crazy world the way you do.
Thank you. I enjoyed it today, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Karena Virginia podcast. Please subscribe on Karena Yoga so that you have updates on new podcasts and when they arrive. And you can also listen on Spotify and Apple. Have a beautiful day, everyone.